Oh, hi there. I was just sitting around reading the newspaper because there was not a whole lot for me to do anymore. You see, I got all the market calls right, or I should say MMT did. We predicted the fall in Treasury yields even though the U.S. got downgraded, the lack of any bank run or exit of any Eurozone member country because of ECB funding, the continued strength in the U.S. stock market, and the outperformance of the U.S. economy thanks to, yes, high deficits, and the lack of any inflation or hyperinflation due to quantitative easing or any other Fed measures, and also the strength in the dollar. All the other guys, they got this stuff wrong. They're still waiting for hyperinflation or interest rates to spike or the dollar to collapse or the end of the world for all I know. There's one thing, though, that has been on my mind, actually, and that's the gold standard. Don't ask me why. Maybe it's because I've been watching Europe and all the misery that's being imposed on the people over there, especially in places like Greece and Spain. And it struck me that that's the gold standard. What we're seeing playing out right before our very eyes is a modern day equivalent to the gold standard with all its terrible effects. Why do I say it's the gold standard? Oh, don't get me wrong. I know they're not actually using gold to back their money or anything like that. But what they're trying to do is fix the quantity of money. That's how the gold standard or any regime of convertibility works. And the way they're fixing the quantity of money is by imposing austerity, reducing deficits, cutting spending, raising taxes, all that kind of stuff. This reduces the creation of new euro-denominated financial assets, otherwise known as money. The amount left has to be rationed off in what remains of a pretty poor economy. Some get the money, others don't, and it's mostly the politically connected that get it. I mean, like the banks, large corporations, wealthy individuals. Everyone else has slim amounts or none. That's the wonderful gold standard for you. You can only grow so much because the amount of money you can create is limited by the amount of gold you have. In order to grow more, you have to get somebody else's gold by one means or another. And historically, that meant becoming mercantilist or sending your goods over to foreigners in exchange for gold, or the quicker, easier way, war. If someone's got gold in the ground and you don't, then go ahead and take it. That is, if you're strong enough militarily to do so. Can you imagine little South Africa, a major gold producer, if we were on a gold standard? Everybody'd be looking at that country like it was a turkey on Thanksgiving. A powerful country like the United States could go to war with South Africa just for its gold. We could steal their wealth because the humans in charge deemed that our wealth came from out of the ground. Actually, that's what went on for thousands of years. If you didn't have gold in the ground but somebody else did, you just go and take it. The world was literally in a perpetual state of war because of the gold standard. How did the British become the British Empire? Well, back in the 16th and 17th century, it was Spain that had the empire, not Britain. Spain pretty much ruled over most of the world. Britain hardly even had a navy, just a ragtag group of private ships, and they were mostly pirates. Back then, Spain's money was backed by silver, and it got most of it from the silver mines in Mexico and Peru. Every month, huge convoys of Spanish galleons brought the silver back to Spain. Then one day, a famous British pirate named Francis Drake came up with a brilliant idea. He would attack those convoys and steal the silver. That would decimate Spain's economy. And that's exactly what he did, and he was immensely successful. As a result, Britain soon had an empire, and Drake became rich, and he was knighted by the Queen, and he became Sir Francis Drake. Thank you very much. Okay, it wasn't actually a gold standard, it was a silver standard, but same thing really. It's digging your money up out of the ground. Some people say it's more stable under the gold standard. They say we didn't have inflation precisely because it limits the amount of money that governments could print. Well, maybe you didn't have inflation, not that money printing necessarily creates inflation. But I'll tell you what you had a lot of, depressions and banking panics. In the 19th century, which is, by the way, a period often lauded as wonderful by the gold bugs, you had no fewer than 10 panics and busts. Let's see, you had the Panic of 1819, the Panic of 1825, the Panic of 1837, the Panic of 1847, the Panic of 1857, the Panic of 1866, of 73, of 84, of 1890 and 1893. And 5 of these panics were followed by a deep recession or a depression. So every 10 years, you had a banking panic and bust or a recession and a depression. I'd say that's pretty destabilizing, wouldn't you? Then in the 20th century, we had the panic in 1907. That was big. And the Great Depression, which was the biggest of them all. And then guess what? We went off the gold standard in 1933 and no more depressions. We've had a few panics since then, but they were relatively short-lived. The most recent being the mortgage crisis. And while you can't really attribute that to a gold standard, we may have gotten into it because we acted like we were on a gold standard. Actually, Alan Greenspan even said this once. He was asked while he was still Fed chief by, I believe it was Ron Paul, of course, if he thought we should go back on the gold standard. And Greenspan said we shouldn't, but in fact, we still act as if we are. And that belief remains today. Not a day goes by that we don't hear some economist or politician or even the president himself saying, we're out of money. What, are we digging our money up out of the ground now? It's absurd. So all the misery and all the economic problems the world is suffering today can be attributed to old-fashioned thinking that we are still limited in the amount of money we can create. Fear of inflation from money printing? Even that's false. The fact is we have no lack of money and no lack of productive labor and capital to create wealth and prosperity for everyone. But we fail to do that because we still think we're somehow digging our money up out of the ground. Future generations will surely look back at this and study and comment on how stupid we were to let so many suffer because of a completely irrational belief. Well, that's it for now. See you next time. This is Mike Norman saying bye-bye.